Part 1, I met her twice. I met her twice. The first time, I didn't know her name. She was standing in the rain outside my office building, umbrella turned inside out, hair soaked through. It was late, maybe past 9, and most people had already gone home. But I stayed behind that night. Avoiding things. Avoiding home. I offered her shelter under my own umbrella. Just a wordless gesture. She nodded and stepped close, and we stood like that, shoulder to shoulder, as the storm bent the world around us. She never spoke, and I didn't ask anything. I didn't want to break the moment. When a taxi pulled up, she touched my arm lightly. A thank you, I think. And then she got in and was gone. The second time I met her, she walked into the room where I was supposed to get married. She wasn't a guest. I don't think she even knew anyone at the wedding. But there she was, sitting in the back row during the rehearsal dinner, wearing a navy blue dress that didn't quite fit the occasion. Our eyes locked. She smiled, small and slow. And just like that, I forgot everything I was supposed to say. Her name was Elise. She introduced herself that evening, after most people had filtered out. She wasn't shy. But there was a stillness to her, like she carried silence with her wherever she went. You were very convincing, she said. I blinked. Convincing? As a man in love. That caught me off guard. Was it that obvious? No, she said. That's why it was impressive. She didn't ask if I was happy. She didn't ask about the woman I was marrying. She didn't ask about the ring on my finger or the life I was walking toward like someone sleepwalking through a script. We just sat there in the quiet of the empty banquet hall. Her fingers traced the rim of her wine glass. Mine stayed clenched around nothing. I should have walked away. Instead, I asked, do you believe in second chances? She looked at me for a long time. Only if the first one never had a real chance to begin with. That was the first night I didn't go home. And I wasn't sure why, but I didn't feel guilty. Not yet. Part 2, the shape of her silence. It was never meant to be an affair. I told myself that. We met for coffee. Then wine. Then nights in dim corners of the city where no one used real names. She never asked what I did for a living. Never asked about my fiancé. And I never asked about the wedding band she wore on a chain around her neck. It was an unspoken agreement, nothing real, only the weight of what we didn't say. But Elise had this way of noticing everything. The way I stirred my coffee clockwise. The way I avoided talking about my childhood. The way I glanced at my phone, even when it hadn't buzzed. She made me feel like I existed. Like I hadn't been just floating through my life on autopilot. One night, as we lay in her apartment, a place as spare and elegant as a confession, she asked me a question I still can't forget. Who are you when no one's watching? I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did. But I wasn't ready to say it out loud. Instead, I asked, what about you? Who are you when no one's watching? She turned her face to the ceiling. Someone who made a choice she can't take back. I asked what she meant. She just said, I should have left before he changed me. She never said his name. Not once. But I could feel him in the room, like the smell of smoke after something's burned down. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. We weren't in love. Not yet. That came later. But there was something deeper than love growing in that silence, something harder to name. And then, one night, it broke. It was raining again, always the rain with her, and she stood in my doorway, drenched, shaking, wild-eyed. He knows. That was all she said. Part 3, the other man. We never spoke about her husband until that night. She came inside, wet shoes leaving prints on the hardwood. Her hands were trembling, and not from the cold. I made tea. She didn't drink it. She just stared at the window like she was waiting for him to appear. I left him a year ago, she finally said. Legally. Quietly. But he never accepted it. I said nothing. Just listened. That's what she needed. He doesn't hit, she said, as if that mattered. But it's worse, in some ways. He controls the air. The space. I used to measure my day by the sound of his car pulling in. Like a dog trained to flinch. I tried to ask what had changed, why now? She cut me off. He followed me yesterday. Did he see you? I don't know. Then her eyes locked onto mine. If he did, you're not safe either. We didn't sleep that night. I stayed on the couch, every shadow outside the window shaped like regret. In the morning, she was gone. No note. No call. And her necklace, the one with the wedding band, was left behind on the kitchen counter. As if she was giving me a piece of herself she couldn't carry anymore. That was the first time I searched her name. And the first time I found out, she had never legally changed it back. She was still Elise Whitaker. Married. At least on paper. But what stopped me cold wasn't her name. It was the obituary beside it. Her husband, Mark Whitaker, had died 2 months ago. Part 4, Things the Dead Leave Behind. I stared at the screen, rereading the obituary. Mark Whitaker. Died in his sleep. No suspicious circumstances. Quiet funeral. No children. 2 months ago. 2 months ago, Elise had been sitting across from me, talking about him as if he were still alive. I should have stopped then. Stepped away. Reported something. Called someone. But instead, I drove to the house listed in the obituary. The Whitaker property sat at the end of a gravel road lined with old birch trees. The lawn was overgrown, the porch warped from rain. Curtains drawn, mailbox crammed full. I didn't knock. I just stood there, hand hovering over the doorbell, heart pounding. She had told me she left him. But she didn't tell me he was dead. She didn't tell me the house was still hers. That it hadn't been sold. That the title hadn't changed. And I didn't ask. Back at my apartment, her necklace was still on the counter. I held it in my hand for what felt like hours, trying to remember every word she'd ever said to me. Wondering if any of it had been real. That night, I didn't sleep. At 3:12 a.m., there was a knock at my door. I opened it to find her standing there, face pale, hair wild. You looked him up, she said. I couldn't lie. Yes. She stepped inside, closed the door behind her. The air between us changed, thicker, heavier. I didn't kill him, she said. Not in the way you think. What does that mean? She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes, not fear of being found, but fear of being known. He was already gone when I left, she whispered. But sometimes the dead don't stay buried the way they should. I asked her what really happened. She reached into her coat and pulled out a photo. It was taken inside that house. It showed her, smiling. Arm around someone who looked almost like me. But not me. And the photo was dated 2019. A full year before I met her. Part 5, The Man Who Looked Like Me. The photo sat on my coffee table for hours after she left. I didn't touch it. The resemblance was undeniable, not just vague familiarity, but something deeper. The same posture. The same left eyebrow, slightly arched. Even the scar near the jawline. I don't remember taking that photo. But that version of me, whoever he was, looked like he belonged in that life. Looked like he fit. And she had never mentioned him. Not once. I called her the next morning. No answer. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I drove to my parents' house. My mother greeted me with that tired smile of hers, the one she wore after the divorce, after my brother stopped calling. She poured coffee, sat across from me. "Do we have any cousins I don't know about?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She blinked. "Where's this coming from?" I showed her the photo. Her face went still. She stared for a long time, then shook her head slowly. "That's not you," she said. "I know. Daniel, there's something your father never told you." The room felt colder. "There was a child," she whispered. "Before me. He never knew him. Just a letter from someone he left behind." "What are you saying?" She hesitated. "Your father may have had another son." I didn't want to believe it, but... She pointed at the photo. "That man looks exactly like he did at your age." I couldn't breathe. "Do you know his name?" I asked. "No. The woman never contacted us again." Later, alone in the car, I looked again at the photo. And I finally saw it, the way Elise leaned toward him. The comfort. The familiarity. Not love. Recognition. That night, she came back. I opened the door before she could knock. "You knew him," I said. "The one in the photo." She didn't deny it. "I knew both of you," she said softly. "But only one of you stayed." Part 6, What We Bury. She sat at the edge of my bed like she was afraid of leaving footprints. Like being here meant dragging the past into a room too small to hold it. "His name was Adam," she said. "He told me he had no family. No one left." "When?" "4 years ago. We met at a gallery. He was intense. Brilliant. But fractured." I listened without speaking. "We lived together in that house. The one you went to. He painted." I tried to make him whole. I finally asked the question I'd been avoiding. "Did he die?" She looked up. "I don't know." She explained it like a confession. One night, Adam had disappeared. Left behind his keys, his wallet. Just gone. The police treated it as a voluntary disappearance. No signs of struggle. No body. "But he wasn't the type to just leave," she whispered. "And after he vanished, strange things started happening. Notes. Paintings left at the door. Of me. Watching me sleep. I felt the ground shift beneath me. What if he didn't disappear?" I said. "What if he became someone else?" She looked at me then, and for the first time, I realized what she feared. Not that he was gone. But that I was him. And didn't know it. Part 7, Splinters. I didn't speak for a long time after she said it. She just sat there, arms crossed, as if bracing herself for me to crack in half. And maybe I did. Not outwardly. But something inside, split. "You think I'm him," I said finally. She shook her head. "I don't think that. I fear it." I laughed, dry, humorless. "You think I'm walking around with someone else's life inside me, and I just forgot?" "I think trauma breaks things," she said. "And not always the way we expect." I stood up. Walked to the mirror. Looked at myself like I was seeing a stranger. I'd always felt disconnected. Like I was living a life that didn't quite fit. I chalked it up to the divorce. To the failed engagement. To years of therapy that gave me language but no relief. But now, her words, that photo, the silence in my own memory, it all pressed against my ribs. "Tell me what he was like," I said. She closed her eyes. "He was kind. Until he wasn't. He would go quiet for days, disappear into his own head. Then come back with a canvas full of shadows. I thought of my own sketchbooks, the ones I never showed anyone. Always empty houses. Always faceless people. I whispered, "Did he hurt you?" She didn't answer. Just reached into her purse and pulled out a small, folded paper. A prescription. Antipsychotics. Date, 2 years ago. Name, Adam Keller. Found it wedged behind a drawer, she said. Months after he vanished. I looked at the name. Adam. And then I remembered something. A dream I used to have. Standing in a room filled with unfinished paintings. A woman humming in the next room. And a name whispered behind a door, "Adam, come back." I sat down, lightheaded. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I asked. "Because I didn't want it to be true," she said. "Because I needed to believe you were someone else." We stared at each other, years of confusion between us. And then she said the words that broke something final in me. He had a scar. Under his ribs. Shallow. From falling on glass. I pulled up my shirt. There it was. Part 8, The Life Before This One. The next few days passed like fragments. I called the clinic listed on the prescription. Spoke with someone who wouldn't confirm identity, but whose silence said more than answers. I checked old records. Found a painting in a catalog from 3 years ago, signed AK. It was mine. I had painted it. But I had no memory of ever holding a brush. And slowly, I began to realize something unbearable. I hadn't lost Elise. I had found her. Again. Without knowing. Without meaning to. And maybe I came back to her because some part of me refused to stay gone. She stayed by my side through all of it. She didn't ask for answers I couldn't give. She just sat with me in the quiet, the way we did before everything cracked. And one morning, she said it. Maybe this version of you doesn't need to carry the guilt of what he did. Maybe you came back different for a reason. But I couldn't believe that. Not fully. Not yet. A week later, we visited the old house. Together. The Whitaker house. We stood on the porch. I put my hand on the doorframe, remembering something. A smell. A color. The exact weight of her footsteps in the hallway. I turned to her. "Do you think I came back to fix something?" She didn't answer. She just reached for my hand and said, "Let's go inside." We walked in, step by cautious step. The place was as I remembered it, or imagined it, or dreamed it. And on the mantel above the cold fireplace, there was a painting. Framed in dust. Unfamiliar. It showed a man and a woman. Their backs turned. Walking into a dark field. And in the sky, in pale brushstrokes. If love is a circle, then so is forgiveness. I didn't know if I was Adam. Or Daniel. Or someone in between. But in that moment, standing beside her, I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving this time. Not again. Not this version of me.